Okay, so today we're going to show you how to create an image like this, an elevation with both shadow and line weights, so that you can control both and bring them into Illustrator and create an image that can show not only the line weights but show some depth in the elevation. We'll talk about adding people and adding trees that are very minimal. This is just a silhouette of a PNG. So we'll show you also how to take a tree PNG with a transparent background and a cloud and turn them into graphics that you see like this. So we'll get started. The first thing we're going to do is start in Sketchup. So we're going to start in Sketchup. What I'm going to do is create, taking the project that I have, turn on shadows up here and make sure shadows are turned on. You can adjust the time of day and the month here, right? Make sure the shadows are doing something that kind of enhances the three-dimensionality of the facade. Choose a shadow that you're interested in, and then you're going to go in and create each of these scenes. So in SketchUp, when you save a view, you have to create a scene, and to do that you go to View, Animation, Add Scene. So I've added 3 of these elevations here. Each one is its own scene, and once you have those, you have the shadows turned on, and the kind of style that I have, this is a hidden line style, so it's just white surface, black line, right? I don't like to have all of, a lot of color. This should just be a very minimal elevation drawing. Okay, so once I've established that, you could either go to File, Send to Layout, or you can open up Layout. I'm just going to open a new project. I'm going to set this tabloid. So you can create a new file and layout, and a lot of the commands are similar to SketchUp. Scroll wheel is zoom, middle mouse click and drag is pan. What I want to do is drop a viewport from SketchUp into layout. So it's basically a view of my SketchUp model that I'm going to have in layout. So I can go to File, Insert, and then go ahead and find that file that we just worked on and hit open. And it's going to pull up a viewport of the last scene that was created. So it's going to give me a viewport based on this last one that was created. And I can select this, and under SketchUp model, I can make sure that this says hybrid. So it's either going to be vector, which is line work, and you'll see this without any shadow, right? Which isn't what we want. Or it's just raster, where this is all pixel based and you won't be able to control the line weights in Illustrator. Or you can set this third option to hybrid, where it's a background image and it's line work overlaid on top, which is what we want. Okay, so we want that ability to control line weights and also see shadows in this elevation. Okay, so I'm going to select this, and I'm going to set the scale here. I'm going to set this to 1/4 inch. So under camera, you can set the scale. And again, this is on an 11 by 17 landscape drawing. And then this will automatically get checked. If this isn't checked, make sure it is. Preserve scale on resize, so that when I do this, it's going to crop the image instead of just resizing it. Okay, so I can crop the view extents to just show what I'm interested in. try to center the drawing. And so this is now a single page. I can add a second page. I could also add another view on this page. Let's say I want this elevation to be in the top left. I can go Control C and Control V to paste the that same viewport. So it'll paste the same view, and then I can manually tell it to change the scene. I'm going to hold Shift and drag, and then I'm going to right click this and go to Scenes, and you'll notice these are all the scenes that I created in SketchUp. So it was set to west. I'm going to set this to south. Okay, and you'll notice it's cropping it here, so making sure that all of this is still checked. That's still 1/4 inch. I'm going to pull this out to extend the view. And this is a little cluttered, so I'm going to pull this down, maybe move both of these over. Use the arrow keys to move. Okay, so these are both, if I click on it, it'll remind me these are both 1/4 inch scale. And I can create a new page if I want to, so I can do that. I can, I could either go insert again, or I can just go back to this previous page, and you go back to previous page here. I can say Control C, go to the next page, Control V to paste it. And it'll paste it in the same place. And then I can just right click and change the scene. Set the scene to east elevation. I'll center that. Okay, so now with all of these set to hybrid, I can now file, export as a PDF. And I'm going to set the JPEG compression to better quality, output resolution to high, and export this. So now I have a multi-page PDF. So you can zoom in and you'll see that line weights are preserved here. And I can bring this into Illustrator. So I'm going to open that file. I'm going to set this to all. And you'll notice it has two spreads. Actually, I think because this was a multi-page, let's try opening this again and just say 1 of 2. Yeah, so I have the ability now to select specific lines, and there's an image in the background. So if I Control X to cut, or Shift Control V to paste, now I've just pasted it on top so you can see it. But what I'll do is Control X to cut it, create a new layer, place that image on that layer below, Shift Control V. So now if I ever want to hide that or isolate it, I can do that more easily. Okay, so I have the elevation image, and I'm just going to rename this layer to, that's the west elevation, or I'll just say west image. And I'll do the same thing here. I'll create a new layer. Control X to cut, lock that, Shift Control V to paste in place, and I'm going to rename this to South Image. Okay, so I have the images that I can turn on and off, and I have line weights that I can turn on and off. And just some other kind of graphic things that I would do. I'll create a new layer on top of everything. And I want to create a ground plane for this so that you don't see the foundation. So I'm going to create a rectangle, make it solid white. And just do this. I'm going to use this solid white rectangle as the backdrop for a hatch pattern I'm going to use. So I'm going to select it, Control C, then Shift Control V, and I'm going to set this one to a pattern. I like to use basic graphics and textures, and maybe a diagonal hatch here. So I have a diagonal line for my earth hatch, and I can use a solid line to be my heavy ground plane. So this line will be heavy and indicate that that is the grade level. What I'll do is I'll group all of these together. Right-click, group, so that I can just copy and paste that down here. Okay. And so, I don't know, graphically this is still kind of cluttered, right? There isn't a lot of space above this. I would probably make this show up on 2 pages, but just for the sake of this tutorial, we'll continue this way. Some things we want to add for context, trees, maybe some idea of the atmosphere. So if you go to any website for PNG trees, transparent, with a transparent background, you can usually download PNG trees like this. What I want to do is take this PNG, and rather than just dropping this into the project, you know, the graphics wouldn't really work well with that kind of line drawing. So I'm going to take this PNG tree, select it, go to Image Trace, and again, I like to work in Essentials Classic here at the top. So if you're not seeing a specific toolbar, click up here and go to Essentials Classic. Select the image, go to Image Trace. Actually, what we're going to do is click the arrow next to it. We're going to go to Silhouettes, and that's just going to do a continuous silhouette throughout the whole image. And I can then hit Expand, and it'll turn it into line work. And then I'm just going to set this to we'll make this a solid white fill and a black line weight. Looks like got confused there. I'm going to do the same thing. So now this is a line drawing of that tree. So I can select this. I can bring down the line weight. Instead of 1 point, I'll set this to 0.25. You want it to be subtle. And selecting it, Control C, I can go into that drawing well, I'll first create a new layer. So I'll call this one Trees. Control V to paste it. Scale. All right, this isn't the most accurate way to, do this, but it'll give you kind of a rough understanding of the landscape around the project. So I can select this, I can go to Object, Live Paint, Make, and now I can do the live paint to fill it with a color, or if I want to just make it grayscale, I can do that. If you hold Alt, it'll go to the color picker and you can grab that color and then continue filling. And if you just click and drag, you can fill multiple sections at once. Then I may still want to bring the opacity down, so make this more kind of subtle, bring it to the background. And what's nice about this method is you can pull it behind your building and you're not going to have to do any masking, right? Because this method from exporting from layout doesn't come with a background sky or anything. So we can do this and not have to worry about cropping anything or trimming it. So this could be a really effective elevation drawing technique. So the same thing that we did with that tree, we can do that with clouds or any other image that we find online. So if I have this image of a cloud, this is also a PNG with a transparent background, right? So I can select this, go to silhouette, right? So, and then hit expand. Now it turns it into line work. But instead of black, I want to create, I'm just going to delete that. I want to create a dot pattern like this to represent the cloud, so more of a stipple pattern. So I'm going to select this, go up here to the swatches, go to libraries, and go to patterns, basic graphics, basic dots, and set this to one of the dot patterns. So now I have a dot pattern cloud that I can play with. I can scale. If I wanted to duplicate this, hold Alt and drag. Maybe make these slightly different. So this can give you kind of a very abstract graphic for sky or clouds. You can play with the intensity that you're looking for. Control C, or if you want this to just be line work, that might work well too. We can do something like that. So then copy and paste that into the drawing. I'm going to create a new layer for clouds as well before I paste that in. Locking the previous so I don't accidentally paste it. Control V, and you can play with that. And again, I don't have a lot of sky. I don't have a lot of room here for my sky, so that would be something I consider when I'm working with this. So I'm going to give myself a little more room to work here. Rename this Clouds. Then if you want to select everything that's on that layer, just hit this circle and it'll grab all of that. Maybe we want to make this gray or turn down the opacity. We can do that as well. Okay, so you don't want this background to overwhelm the image. It's really just giving a subtle sense of some atmosphere in the background. So I'm going to turn off, set this to no line weight so that it's even more subtle. And adding people. So there's vector people that I've downloaded. So these are all vector people from online. You can drop these in. So this is an elevation, so maybe something like this. You want people kind of matching the drawing. I'm going to create a new layer on top of all of this called people. And paste that in here. Now this is critical. You want to make sure these people are the proper scale. So always double check. Maybe in your model you have a dimension that you know, like top of that is a little over 5 feet. So that's approximately the scale that we want to use here. And rather than having each of these as independent shapes, right, I'm going to group all this together. So I'm going to select everything on that layer, right click, group. Now it's all one thing. If I want to make this grayscale, one way that we can do that is click on recolor. Actually, there's the, just to kind of show some of the new ways to do this, there's a generative recolor that we can use. Like we can pick a color theme from this, but you could also go generative recolor and just type grayscale, and it'll give you options for grayscaling that subject. The alternative is select the artwork, go to edit, edit colors, convert to grayscale. Okay. So we have some people for scale, we have clouds, trees, and an image that we can now be happy with. Again, let's say we want to remove some of these surface edges, right? I could select these. I've still locked everything else. I'm just selecting the lines I want to delete, deleting those. And again, you can play with the line weights. Let's say we want maybe a heavier line weight for the entire perimeter of this image. Just select those. We'll go to view or window, stroke, and set the line weight to something we want. So a little heavier line weight. So in an elevation, the line work for geometry closer to your view plane is going to be a heavier line weight, then it gets lighter as it goes back into the distance. So those are some rules for hierarchy and things that you'll want to consider in your elevations. All right. So that's how to create elevations using Sketchup and Layout, and then bringing them into Illustrator. From there we can file, export as, and you can save it as a JPEG and use the artboard so it crops at the artboard location. And I'm going to export this high, so 400 ppi, so it comes in as kind of a higher resolution image. All right, so that's how to create elevations from SketchUp and layout.